Thank you for coming. We have a great class today. Let me just turn on the... We have a great class today. Today's class, also, before we start the class, April 5th, we officially have our first event for findtheone.org in honor of Tanya. The event's going to be in Midtown Miami. It's going to be during the Passover, and it's going to be very, very good. We're planning to have events more or less once a month, so we could start getting some momentum with the single community. This particular party will be ages 25 to 40, that particular party. But there's going to be other parties in New York, etc. We're hoping to get the ball rolling. Obviously, we all know what the intermarriage rate issue is today, and I don't stop. Sometimes I feel like stopping, but I'm going to push until we fix this crisis here in this shidduch crisis, because it's a crisis, and I think this is something that we all want. I want also the singles to be involved. I created an app not for myself, for the people. I'm married already. I'm booked. I got 4 kids. I'm fully booked. I don't need it for me. So you could, but somebody's got to get the ball rolling. Somebody's got to get the ball rolling, and that's what I needed to do. I said, let me use the momentum of today's class, and let me use the momentum to get the ball rolling. Okay, so today, we know that today's, God willing, Wednesday night, Purim starts. It's going to be an amazing, amazing holiday. Moshe, you good with the technical details? Good?
Yeah.
Okay, let's start. Officially good? Okay, wonderful. Okay, so Wednesday night's Purim. We have an amazing, amazing holiday coming up. The Arizal says the light of Purim only comes down once a year. And this specific light that we get on Purim is a light that is called the light of Etz Ratzon. It's a light that anybody can pray, they get answered. It's an unbelievable, unbelievable light. And I gave the example, this is our Black Friday. We know when people wake up for Black Friday, somehow they find a way to get up at 2 o'clock in the morning to go to Walmart. This is the day that you need to take the advantage of this opportunity to pray specifically early in the morning. Why specifically early in the morning? Because that's when the Jews, Purim represents the Jews getting the Torah a second time. So, because this time we got it through love. The first time God says, if you don't learn Torah, I'm going to smash the tablets down your face. But this second time represents the Torah being received through love, through a different attitude of being saved. So that's why we have to wake up early in the morning, because what happens is we overslept. So we don't want to oversleep. So this is, put your alarm clock on, go to bed early Wednesday night, and wake up Thursday morning begging your heart out. That's where all happens. Remember, the Arizal says very clearly that if a person receives something without praying for it, it can be detrimental. That means it doesn't have a vessel to contain it. So things just don't come. We have to create the appropriate vessels for them to come. Once we pray for them, then we can receive the blessing and we can actually take advantage of the blessings. So remember, the first thing in Purim is it's about prayer. Yes, enjoy your parties, enjoy everything, but get focused on the prayer. Get focused on waking up early, spend 1 hour in Hizbodedut, put some music on. Even if you feel like it, you don't feel like it, you got to just do it. Eventually you'll feel like it. I can't tell you enough. I don't start my Hizbodeduts. When I start my meditations, my praying to God, I don't start with the greatest mood in the world. I get into it, just like a workout. You just don't start with ecstasy and bliss and stars shooting everywhere. Absolutely not. It's more like somebody pulling your teeth and you're working it and you're working it and you're working it, and then you start building momentum. That's what we have to realize. So get in a habit of fighting your feelings, especially the feelings of Amalek. That's another thing we're going to talk about tonight is Amalek. What is Amalek doing to us today? Amalek specializes in cooling a person off. That's his cool thing. That means whenever you get an inspiration to do something and you get cooled off, that's the Amalek inside of you. And guess what? That's what today's issues are. So we got the dynamic things today to talk about. So remember, Purim represents us getting the Torah brand new, with a new attitude. Today, a person could say, I'm gonna look at the Torah brand new. We spoke about many times that it's all our perception. Sometimes we get into a situation that we're not grateful for things in life. I could tell you, and I think I'm the only guy screaming this all over town, but what does Amalek also represent? A forgetfulness. One of the common problems that I think today we have is we forget the good that God's done to us. Specifically, Esther represents being hidden. God's hidden in our world today. Purim represents God being hidden in nature. 2 years ago I said, You know what? There was supposed to be a bomb thrown at Aventura Jewish Turnberry by this guy James Medina. And nobody's talked about that since then. Nobody, you don't hear. You don't hear parades, you don't hear ceremonies, you don't hear gratitude days. You don't hear absolutely nothing. The guy wanted to bomb a synagogue on Passover where there could have been 300 to 400 Jews there. Right, your neighbors. I'm not talking about something in right around the block. And you know what happened? We were lucky that the guy bought the bomb from an undercover FBI agent. Do you know what kind of disaster that would have been? Did anybody celebrate? Nobody got hurt. Nobody celebrated. Nobody changed their ways. Nobody did nothing. It's like, oh, thank you, God. Thank you for saving us. And we just moved on. That's a problem. That's a problem because we don't appreciate. Anytime we get into a rut, it's because we fail to appreciate the good that God's done to us. This is a common problem of forgetfulness. We have a long-term memory for trauma, short-term memory for gratitude. We need to switch it around. This is our problem today, and I can't tell you enough. There's no way you can get to see your Creator, to attach yourself to your Creator without the praise first. And if we forget how good God's done to us, and all we remember is all our problems and all the things we got to deal with, and all the headaches in our life, then what happens? We lose the vitality. But God is constantly doing miracles for us. This Aventura could have been a massacre. 17 people died in Parkland. This could have been hundreds. And right down the block from you. And look what's going on in Parkland, how the world has changed. But we were saved and nothing happens. Nobody in that community probably did a thing. I would interview, what did you do different since being saved? And nobody got hurt. You're going to ask everybody and they're going to tell you, oh, I forgot about it. This is very similar to us today. God's hidden. He's doing so many miracles behind the scenes, and we don't see it. And what do? We complain. But the problem is, today, what's the problem? It's built into our DNA. Just like the Jews were in Egypt, God split the Red Sea 10 times for you, split the Red Sea, did 10 miracles, 10 plagues. What happens? We forget, and we start complaining about not having meat. This is where the mentality is today. So that's where we lose our heart, and this ingratitude eventually leads us to problems, and we get stuck. So the first thing is, Purim should be a day of gratitude. Just say, anybody who lives in Aventura should say, you know what? Every single time I pass by that synagogue, I look at the miracle that God did. I stopped for a minute, I said, wow, this wall could have been destroyed, synagogue could have been destroyed. Do you think anybody remembers that? So that's something we need to, everything goes into perception, because it's funny how people will have ceremonies when, God forbid, tragedies happen and everybody comes together, but when they just forget, they don't do nothing. Doesn't make any sense. So we also need to look at, we need to recount the good in our past. Sometimes you need to do one prayer. I don't want to ask for anything. All I want to do is thank you for all the past. Because you can't get abundance if you don't feel abundant. I keep on telling that to everybody. It doesn't match. It doesn't match. 2 plus 2 is 4. It doesn't match. You need to feel abundant to attract abundance. If we don't feel abundant by looking at the miracles because we have a short memory, then we can never radiate more and we can never sing out. That's one thing that I'm able to master, is constantly, whenever I'm in a state that I don't like, I focus on all the good that God's done to me. And somehow, right away, I get out of that state very quickly. If you can just get that from Purim, that there's hidden miracles that you don't even realize they're happening. Every single minute, every single day, you don't even know an FBI agent was buying the bomb from this guy. We had no idea what was going on. And it happened right in the times of April, right in the times of almost Adar, Nisan, the same time of salvation. So that's one thing that Amalek, he cools us off and he forgets, you forget what God's done for you. Number one thing, we can't get anywhere in our lives without gratitude. Now studies are showing a person who just says 5 things he's grateful for a day, his life, his happiness improves 25%. 25%. You mean I can change my life 25% by waking up every morning and doing a gratitude journal of just 5 things? Yes, 25%, and this is scientific studies. It's proven, and there's tons of studies showing. Why is it? Because when we focus on our gratitude, we stop focusing on our ingratitude. Okay, that's the number one thing I just want to get that memory concept out of the way. Okay, so, a couple other things about Amalek. What is Amalek really? Amalek, Rav Nosson says, Amalek is the is the machloka between husband and wife. The shalom bayit comes from machloka. What do we say when we have a fight with our wives? Is this the wife I'm supposed to marry? Maybe I made a mistake. The doubt. Are you sure, God? Right? Are you sure? Is this the one? Maybe. I don't know. Maybe I should have done tshuva. What do? We start questioning. When things go bad, all the questions come. Are you sure, God? It can't be. There's no way this was good for me. I said that in my first marriage, and I was pretty right. But what happens? We question. So what does he say here? This refers to the strife between husband and wife. So Amalek represents doubt. Anytime you have doubt, you automatically get cooled off. You see the problem is? Amalek attacks people from the back. He didn't attack the strong ones. He attacks the ones from the back and he cools you off. What happens when he cools you off? You stop. You jump off the ship. You're cooled off. Our job in life is to stay on fire for our spirituality. But Amalek, he puts doubt in your head, you start questioning yourself, and you cooled off. Maybe it's not going to work. Maybe it's not going to get fixed. Maybe I'm not going to get healed. So all these doubts, what happened? They put doubt into your heart. And then your heart is divided, your moon is divided, and the rest is history, unfortunately. So this is something that we have to work on. This is the real fight of Amalek. And what does Rav Nachman say here? That the tikkun for Amalek is strength. Why do you think I pump so much strength in these classes? Because if you don't have that inner strength, you're going to have a bad day and you're going to fall. That's the tikkun. Listen to what he says here. The war against Amalek is a war against the evil inclination. It's a prolonged war. The way you humble Amalek is through strength. We know Sarah's an attorney. What happens? One of these, if another side, what do they want to do? They want to drown the other side with paperwork, and they just want to kill them emotionally. And they just want to beat them and wear them down. So what do they say? Let's settle. That's exactly what happens. What this is Amalek does to us. He wears you down and he wears you down and he wears you down. And you say, okay, I had enough. I'm done. That's what he does to us. So he says, regardless of what we go through, we have to realize that our tikkun in this fight against Amalek is strength. That's the tikkun. It's strength. That means you have to find a way to to have inner strength inside of you. Because you're going to constantly go from ups and downs, and if you don't have the strength, what happens is despair. What's the opposite of strength? Despair. That's when people throw in the towel. So that's what he says, the battle against despair. As long as we don't despair, you won the war. That means, what does he say here? Who won the war? The guy who's holding his weapon still. You don't even have to beat him. You just have to hold on to your weapons. What is your weapon today? War. What is your weapon today? Prayer. That's your weapon today. We know that Amalek, what is Amalek? What did Moshe Rabbeinu, when he hands his heads up, what did it represent? It represents he was praying. They won the war. When he put his hands down, they lost the war. That's the key to victory. The key to victory is strengthening and overcoming the doubt in your life. That's what we're fighting. That's what Purim is. Purim is all about rejuvenating yourself, constantly chizuk. You know, if a guy has a candle and the candle has a little flame, what happens? Any little wind, it's gone. But if a guy has fire, what does the wind do? It makes him much, much stronger. So we have to say, am I a little candle or am I fire? Look at the Breslov logo. Does it look like a candle to you? No, it's fire. Rab Nachman's message is fire. You need to stay on fire. And problems should propel you to get stronger. Not be like a little candle that any little problem, that's it, the light's out. There's no, you're finished. That means you're weak. So that's what Amalek does. It attacks the weak ones in the back, specifically. So this is, and specifically on the Tikkun HaBrit, that's specifically where he gets you. Because after despair comes sexual immorality. That's it. That's the formula. It hasn't changed. Nothing has changed under the sun. The rules are the same. It's just the players need to get better. It's the players that need to get better. So, when we received the Torah this time, what did we do? We accepted it with love. We know Purim, the representation between Purim and Yom Kippur is very similar. On Yom Kippur, we were forgiven. right? We are forgiven for the golden calf. And what happens? We receive the Torah the second time brand new. So on Purim, you're doing the exact same thing, but this time you're doing it through love. So Purim represents a new attitude towards the Torah, a new rejuvenation. And what happens when we don't have the rejuvenation? What does Amalek do? It stops us, it cools us off. When we cool off, we stop learning, we stop praying, we stop doing. This is the message that it happens. So this is what it represents. A new rejuvenation of your soul is what Purim and the fight against Amalek is. That's why it's so important to learn Torah on Purim specifically, because Purim represents the new rejuvenation. I just received the Torah brand new, because Amalek tries to weaken us and weaken our resolve and get us to absolutely quit. So that's one of the things that we have to work on. That's why Breslov, it's usually when a person stops praying, Reb Nachman says, it's usually he's on the 1 yard line, ready to go, ready for all he had to do is one more time. That means he was literally at the 1 yard line. All you needed was one more time, and you know what happens? He says it's comparable to a warrior. He kills everybody else, and he gets to the middle of the door. He gets to the door. He opens the door, and he sees a spider web. And you know what happens? He quits. He sees a spider web, and he realizes, wow, I can't all this for a spider web, and he quit for a spider web. That's how you have to wake up every day. You have to wake up every day to say, today is the day. Today is the day. This is the prayer that I need. And it's specifically when you don't feel like it. When you don't feel like it. So, because remember, think about it. Why are we not praying? Why are we not doing this? It's because of our emotions. No other reason. No other reason. Why would I not pray? If I don't believe in prayer, if I believe that prayer can change my shalom bayit, why would I not spend all my time in prayer? Why would I go straight to the source? It's because my beliefs are not in line with what I should have. So that's something we need to really, really ponder today. There's a great article here. Reb Nachman says here that there are two real pieces. There's a real peace, that means the person's at peace with himself, and there's what we try to understand. We know that we have our faults, and there's also the peace of Amalek. This is a different kind of peace. Remember, sometimes people have false peace, and look what he's saying here. The fact that he cooled us off, that means whenever a person's making an effort to improve, right? Or he's trying to improve his ways, or he's trying to fight his Yetzer Hara, he's trying to have goals, and all of a sudden he loses his resolve. What is he saying here? Anytime we second guess ourselves, maybe the guy's not in for because I'm not pretty enough. Maybe this, all the second guessing that we're constantly dealing with this. Maybe it's not going to work out. So what happens? You quit. So you're at peace with yourself. I tried. That peace is not good peace. That means you're trying to comfort yourself by saying, you know what, I tried. I don't want to risk my ego getting any hurt anymore. I'd rather just stay in my comfort zone. Because if I try again, what happens? Maybe I'm going to fail, and my ego is going to be exposed again. So I'd rather just stay where I am today. That's the false type of peace. That's what we don't want. Because remember, the key to happiness is growing and giving. If you're not growing, you'll never be happy inside. Progress is happiness. That's the key to success. So that's what he's saying here, is when a person's saying, I had enough of this, this is who I am, I'm big boned, I can't lose weight, my DNA's, this is the way, I can't be happy because I'm clinically depressed. You give titles to yourself. So now I have a title, so I can stop, I don't have to do anything. Stay a victim, I don't have to do nothing. So I'm at peace with myself. That's the wrong type of peace. That's the peace of defeat. That's the peace of giving up. That we don't want. So that's what also represents Amalek. That's one of the things. So now, let's talk about what Reb Nachman's saying here. One of the issues that we have. Where does the word Haman come from today? Hamin ha'etz. That means Haman's name comes exactly from Chava. What was the problem with Chava? What's the problem in the Jewish community today? We lost the simplicity. We lost the heart. You know what? I'm going to wake up and pray. I'm going to wake up and I know things are going to get better. When's the last time you heard that? I haven't heard that much. People say, oh, I can't. It's finished. I tried already. Where's the simplicity? The simplicity. My rabbi told me I shouldn't pray because it's Bittul Torah, or all this everything's complicated. Nothing's easy. You know, you have a shalom bayit problem. Why don't you ask your wife what she wants from you? No, we need to see a psychologist, and I think she's this, and I think she's that. Why don't you just ask her what you need from her? What do you mean? She can't, she's impossible, she's codependent, her mother-in-law. I said, why don't you just ask her what she needs from you? The simplicity of saying communication. One communication, saying, what do you want from me, and how can I better myself? No, we need to see 10 psychologists, we need to see everything. Why is this so complicated? Where is this complication coming from today? Which is also a problem today with the lack of simplicity, that God wants nothing of that. Rav Nachman got to his message today. You know where he got to himself today? He got himself, Rav Nachman saying clearly that the key to my success was nothing but simplicity. Nothing more but simplicity. He didn't do anything. He didn't have kavanot when he prayed. He didn't have anything but simplicity. Where does this things that where everything has to be hard or to get healed? Where is this coming from today? It says the nature of pride is that it seeks to become a vessel for intellect. In order to acquire power, the malchut of the sitra achra is the very counterforce of the good kedusha. So he says you might think you're intellectual, or what I learned Gemara all day long. I'm going to start praying now. I'm wasting my talents. This is what you hear from people, right? It says the main sin between Adam and Eve was pride. That's the main sin. What did Chava do? Her whole essence was she was complicated. Why didn't she just wait, and why didn't she rely? Why did she have to try to be smarter than God? Can't she have just done the tikkun and fit her role? But no, she wanted to be smarter than God. So what does Haman represent? It says, Rav Nachman says here, that our whole job is to have happiness and simplicity. What is Haman today? Where is Haman in the Torah? Hamin ha'etz. Was it from the tree? Eve said that she ate from the tree because the snake fooled her, right? Instead of saying, I made a mistake, she came up with an excuse, which is the opposite of simplicity. Sophistication and logic today is what's killing your inner joy, where a person just can rely on the Torah's message, on something simple for him to get what he needs today. What do you mean? A tikkun klali can help me with my problem, with my addictions? Yes, it can help you. That in the mikvah. What do you mean? How can that be? It's impossible. That's your problem. Your belief system is impossible. That you don't believe in something that Rav Nachman came out with 250 years ago, that you need something so complicated, because in order for things to get better for you, they have to be very, very hard. That's a negative belief. And this is exactly what the Yetzer Hara does to us. The sophistication and logic, you start losing your joy. You start losing your joy, your simplicity, your joy. And it says, but the forces of what do? They disrupt the process. They can't let you have simple joy. How could you be happy? Look at all the problems you have. So what did Chava try to do? She tried to make things complicated. And that's where Haman comes from. This concept of things being very complicated. Can't be easy. So the main sin of Adam and Chava was pride. The serpent says, and you will be like God. And here we go. All the troubles we have today are from the curse of death. And it says, therefore, teshuva is what? Humility. That means all of my problems, if I tell you that the biggest light in the world comes from ayin, which is the light of Keter, which is the light of humility, as we said today, may ayin yavo ezri, from where will my help come from? When I get to ayin. When I get to a state of humility. Self-nullification. You know where all my problems today are coming from? When I take that ayin and I make it ani. Me. My pride, my ego, my expectations, my this. Everything's complicated. You understand? That's where our problem is. If we connect to ayin, we accept what God's giving us right now. If we want ani, I don't accept it. I don't accept what's going on in my life. So what's your tikkun? To go to ayin. Goes back to humility. The same problem goes back to humility. That means once you accept, once you stop blaming, once you nullify yourselves to God, all of a sudden you get the light of Keter. You get this unbelievable light of transcendence, of abundance. You're connected to the one. You're connected to the soul of God. You're connected to your real soul. But ani separates you like Chava did. She wanted to be too smart. That was her problem. She would have just been humble. She would have done tikkun. So what happens? The quickest way to get out of our problems is change from ayin to ani. So look at our lives today. What are we upset about? My problem, my headache, my situation. I don't like what this one's doing for me. I don't like my in-laws. I don't like that one. I don't like my wife. It's all about me. It's not about God. It's not about God's will. It has nothing to do with God's will. It has to do with what I want. I don't like things the way they are going right now. I'm not making enough money. I don't like the economy. I. Is it ayin? Ayin means keter. Ayin means nothingness. Nothingness. Nothing. I accept. I nullify myself to God's will. Whatever He wants. If He wants me to be 35 and not married, that's what He wants for me right now. If He wants me to do this, I accept. I accept everything. I'm not going to go and be sophisticated and try to understand everything that's happening. I accept and then I understand. That's why emunah before intellect. That's why the night comes before the day. Otherwise the day would come, I would see everything clearly. But why do I have to have the night before the day? Because the night represents emunah, and I'm here in this world for emunah. I'm here in this world to accept. And the only way to accept is to bittul yourself, to nullify yourself to the situation, and then you get to ayin. You get to this level of ayin. Number one step in the 12 steps is what? I'm powerless. What is he doing? My whole life is out of order. I destroy people's lives. I rob people. I ruin people's lives. Now I got to go back because it was all about ani. It was all about me. Now what do I need to do? First step. I'm powerless. I'm ayin. So now you get help. See the thing? It could be the biggest thing. If you just go from ayin to ani in any single problem you have, you make a complete shift of humility. There's where your life starts. See, we all have that turning point in our life that things can change. And we know from Purim, what was that turning point? The turning point was Vashti, when she grew a tail. God created a miracle. I mean, we all watch football, we watch basketball. When the team goes on the run, when the team goes on a run, there's momentum. All of a sudden, they're down 20, but they go 15, they make a run for 15 in a row. You have that ability to do that. And that's when you do that. When you go from ani to ayin, there's the beginning of your momentum. That's the beginning of your life changing. That's the beginning of my life changing when I was in the worst scenario of my life. And I said, okay, you know what? I can't complain anymore. I'm tired. I had enough of complaining. I'm just exhausted of the complaining. I'm going to start accepting and appreciating and just pretend I'm out already. There was the major shift. It wasn't seeing 20 therapists. It was me changing what I saw, how I perceived the world. And I started saying, God, there's a bigger picture here. Why? I don't understand it, but I will accept it. Boom! Ani to ayin, ani to ayin, and there goes everything else. The rest is history. The rest is history. So that's what we have. That's when we let God into our lives, when we make that shift. So this is your whole life. Your whole life is dependent upon this, by the way. Every problem you have today is dependent upon this problem. If you don't understand you're in a situation of it's me, if you can't understand it, then you need to ask somebody to help you. And ask them, by the way, in this situation, do you think I'm too much involved about myself? Am I a taker or am I a giver? Because think about it. If I'm connected to my soul, why would I not forgive somebody else? Right? If I'm connected to ayin, I would forgive somebody in a minute. Correct? I would forgive somebody. Because I know it's God's will that this happened to me. If you insulted me, it's God's will. If you embarrassed me, it's God's will that I got embarrassed. Everything is God's will. We have to believe that everything is God's will. Once we get to that point, we can get to the letter ani, to ayin, and then our life changes. Then we get the light of Keter. When you get the light of Keter, then things open up for you in unbelievable ways. Unbelievable ways. That's the number one thing we have to beg Hashem. I beg you for humility. I beg you for the ability to forgive easy. Because I'm not forgiving from my mind, I'm forgiving from my heart. I'm forgiving because it's my soul wants to forgive. The same thing when we have an addiction. What's our addictions about? You love yourself. You love yourself. That means if a person loves himself, a person's in his soul level, he's drawn to love, not lust. So he would be able to conquer an addiction because he knows that's the right thing to do. It's coming from the heart. It's not about me. Look how many people I harmed in my life. It's about me giving now. So when you become a giver, your life shifts completely. Same thing in marriage. When you focus on what your wife's not doing, what happens? Ani, me. When you say, you know what? Look at her situation. She's got 2 kids. I'm going to have compassion on her. Then you're connected to your soul. You're connected to humility. And then once you're humble, God's with you. He's with you the rest of your life. He sends you the signs. He tells you what to do. He tells you what your mission is, because you're connected to His will. You're connected to His will. You're connected to His will. This is one of the biggest things, and this can only be done through utmost simplicity. Anything but simplicity. That means any kind of sophistication, any kind of overthinking, all this nonsense it completely gets us away from our mission. It gets us away from what we need to do. That's the message I need to tell people. You're too complicated. Give away the garments. I tell people sometimes the best thing that could happen to you is a spiritual concussion, that you just forget everything and just start brand new. That would be the best therapy for you. Concussion therapy. Forget everything. Just start new. Pretend you were just born. How would you act? How would you look at the sun? Because this is all the mess is coming from our subconscious. It's coming from all our past memories. My mother wasn't nice to me when I'm younger. And she caused me to do this. All this schmutz that our people are staying in a jail because of this. All you have to do is accept, okay, my mother, let me ask you a question. If your mother was in a wheelchair, are you going to blame her your whole life for being handicapped? No. So some people are emotionally handicapped. Can't do nothing about it. This is what God gave you. He gave you this kind of mother. Or He gave you this kind of father. My father left me when I was 8 years old. I left Colombia. Is that my story now? Absolutely not. Write a book. I had a tough childhood. And see how many books you would sell. I had a tough childhood. Go sell it on Amazon and see if anybody would buy it. They would laugh at you. They would say, welcome to the club. Welcome to the club. Who did it? Welcome to the club. I had a #1 bestseller. I had a tough childhood. They would literally laugh at you. Go to normal parts of America and tell them you had a tough childhood, and they would laugh in your face. So, now that we got off the tangent a little bit, lesson 36, we're going to talk about the power of fasting. What is the issues with fasting? How great is it? So we understand, Rav Nachman says in lesson 179, we have a fast tomorrow. And what's so important about fasting? What are we doing when we fast? Rav Nachman has a beautiful Torah. He says the benefit of fasting is humbling the heart. That's the benefit of fasting. What do you do when you fast? You're humble. You're not eating anything. You feel weak. Things don't bother you so much, right? You don't have the strength to fight, right? Your wife's telling you this, it's okay. After the fast, we'll talk about it. Right now, I don't have the strength to fight, right? What does it do? It humbles your heart. It humbles the heart. That's the benefit of fasting. Rav Nachman says an unbelievable rectification. It says, through fasting, the heart is subdued and weakened. And you're connecting to, again, when you're not eating, when you're not drinking, when you're not getting any pleasure, who's getting all the sustenance? Your soul. The body's getting nothing. The soul gets 100%. So he says, what happens when all his other wills are negated in the face of the will of God? He says, what happens when he negates his own will? God all of a sudden favors his will. Look what he says. Therefore, by the means of fasting, all strife is negated. So that's why specifically before a person has a bad dream, if a person has any kind of fight, it's because there's strife. What happens? What is a fight? Somebody's not doing the will that I want. Correct? That's a fight. They're not doing my will. How do you get them to do your will? Rav Nachman says here, by the means of fasting, as our sages say, negate your will to his will, so that the will of others will be negated to your will. That means if you want people to accept what you want to say, you first have to negate yourself to God's will. That means I have to connect to Ayin, not Ani. If I connect to Ani, then what happens? What's the #1 reason women are complaining to their husbands? He's too arrogant. He doesn't listen to anything I say. He's not open-minded. So stubborn. So what happens? She doesn't want to negate to his will. But if he's open-minded, he's warm, he's humble, what happens? She ends up doing what he wants. Why? Because God makes it happen. That means God makes happen. That means, what is that practically saying to me? If I have enemies, what do I need to do? My battle is with humility with God, and then all of a sudden my enemies go away. The enemies are coming to me only because my enemies, I'm not negating, I'm not humble. You understand that? It's all connected. So what does he say here? Through fasting, one's will is already negated to the will of God, so that the wills of others are negated, and there goes the strife. Strife is over. Because all of a sudden, God's taking the control, and he's negating all your enemies. This is what our sages teach. This is specifically when a person fasts. Why do we fast? Look what he's saying here. Something beautiful. The value of fasting is that it revives the dead. What happens? We have those bad days, like the Jews in Purim. What did they do? They for 2-3 days they had a party, they had orgies, etc. How do you rectify bad days? You have to go back into them. How do you go back into them? Just for example, if I'm not eating anything and I'm fasting, where am I getting the energy from? From yesterday's food or the day before. I didn't eat anything. Where am I getting the energy from? So what happens? We're able to go back into the future, go back into the past, and rectify the days that we didn't use the energy properly, which is amazing. That's why what happens when you get a bad dream, it's a good sign you need to go and fix something in the past. It has nothing to do with now. It has to do with fixing a lot of schmutz in the past. I have questions after. So he says, because each day, very important, each day there's a specific shefa that comes above to a person. Every day there's a specific blessing entitled to you. This is the dangers of being in the past, because you never get that new shefa. You don't believe there's a new blessing every day. So what do you say? The month is finished. The year is finished. I had a bad year, but it's only February. How could you have a bad year? It's only February. That means your whole year's done? What are you doing? You're not connecting to the vitality of that day. That means I should wake up to every day and say, every single day there's specific shefa assigned for me. If you get angry, what happens to that shefa? You lost it right away. Done. Come back tomorrow. That's how it works. So what is he saying here? On the day a person performs mitzvahs and good deeds, he gives life to that day, and he draws vitality in that day. That means I get the energy from above in that day. And I can use that. Remember, everything becomes physical, and then it becomes spiritual. So it has to go through a spiritual shefa, and then it goes down the pipeline of the 10 sefirot, and then it becomes physical shefa. So when I sit there and wake up early, I pray, I give charity. What do? I'm tapping into getting the most of that day. If I oversleep, if I don't do anything productive, what am I doing? I'm not getting any vitality from that day. I'm getting nothing from that day. So the day goes dead. It's like unclaimed property, spiritual unclaimed property. Tons of property, nobody claimed it. You forgot to pick it up. That's what's happening. You ordered it, but you forgot to pick it up. That's what's happening spiritually. But if God forbid he does not do anything, the influx of that day gives it the shefa in that day. You just get the peanuts. You just get the very little manner in order for you to survive. That's what he's saying here. So when a person is not tapping into, he's not doing what he's supposed to be doing, he's just getting the crumbs of the bread. The other guy's getting the whole bread with the toast. He's getting the crumbs because he didn't take the vitality. So if we don't break patterns of thinking, if we don't realize, oh my God, it's 9 o'clock. I'm not going to just have a bad day because I had something happen to me. I'm going to renew the day. Why should I blow the whole day because of one problem? What do people say? I have one problem? Day's finished. Right? I had a bad day. But it's 10 o'clock. Could you have a bad day? You had a bad hour. Not a bad day. You say you had a bad day, it's 10 o'clock, you killed the shefa of the day. You killed the shefa. That's why Rav Nachman, what did he always used to do? He used to, in the same day, sometimes he had to reinvent himself 7 times a day. 7 times in the same day. He had to restart. That's our job. Because he knows that vitality, I can still grab onto something. There was a house, the Rav Nachman and Rav Natan, they were walking, and there was a house that was completely burnt on the ground. And what happened? Rav Natan said, look, the guy lost his house. But Rav Nachman says, but look, he's still picking up, he's still trying to save the pieces. That means in the fire, he's still trying to pick up whatever he lost. He didn't give up on the whole house. You can say the whole house is burnt. But look, he says, look what the man's doing. He's trying to save whatever he has left. That's what we have to do. When we have those days where it's very dark, we need to fight those days, and just like the guy has had his house burned, you have to find the good in those days. Every day has good into it, but what happens? There's a Yetzer Hara that's blocking you, and you have to fight. You have to transform the darkness into light, not push it away. That's addiction number one. Addiction 101 is take light and push darkness away. We need to transform it. Find the good in that bad, because everything was originally good and it descended into evil. So he says, what happens when a person does this? If he doesn't get the energy, and he gives the example here of a woman giving breast to a child. What happens? She has milk, the baby gets. But what happens if she has no more milk? What happens? You can suck the life of the day, of the actual blood. It comes into blood. So that's exactly what we do. If we don't take advantage of every day and look at every single day brand new, every single day I say to myself, oh, I'm giving my first class today. If I'm giving my first class, there's my energy. If I said, oh my God, another class, how many did I do already? 500 classes? What am I going to say? I don't look at it. I look at every day, brand new day. This is my first class I've ever gave. And then that's where my vitality comes from. That's a skill for everything, to look at every day as a separate blessing. This is why the man came down every single day. There's no such thing as a person giving up. Oh, I had 3 bad weeks. How'd you get yourself to 3 bad weeks? If every single day is new bounty, new shefa, you're going against the whole creation. What are you doing? That's the same problem we're doing. So if we're not in control of our emotions, bad hours turn into bad days. Bad days turns into bad weeks turn into bad months turn into bad years, and bad decades. Because we didn't make that switch. We didn't give up that story. We didn't change our thought process. We didn't change our perception. We didn't change. So this is what we got. So Rav Nachman saying here that when you fast, what are you doing? You're going back into the past. You go back into the past and you rectify the bad days. So you can undo bad days. Unbelievable. You can go back to the past. What an unbelievable thing. That's why a person, now you can eat your bread with joy, because you made a tikkun, you rectified the bad days. That's why I recommend people to fast. When you fast, this is exactly what you're doing. And he's saying here that each day's creation and individual vitality, aside from the influx of bounty, he also sucks the day's individual vitality until these days are left dead. This is equivalent to a baby. So again, however, by fasting, a person rouses and revives these days. And it all depends on fasting. When a person fasts, he has no vitality. He gets that illumination from the day before. It's a very, very powerful thing. Very powerful thing. So now I have to understand, the more I go into, and also this is the same thing that Teshuvah does. If all of a sudden I say to myself, you know what, God, I realized I had I was just completely off with my perception. I'm going to come back to you out of love. Not, I have to do teshuvah. Oh, I have to do teshuvah. That means if I do teshuvah out of love, you know what happens to all your sins? They get transferred into mitzvahs. Can you imagine that? What an unbelievable thing. All the bad, past and the bad, becomes a mitzvah, for God's sake. That's if you do it out of love. If you do it out of, I have to do this because my rabbi told me no. That means you should get to a level that you should want to do it because your soul and your heart need it. So we have to open up our hearts and we have to say, I'm done with the story, I'm done with everything, I'm going to reinvent myself, I'm going to look at the past and I'm going to say thank you to Hashem. All of a sudden, you transform all the past to good. Do you understand how powerful it is? All God wants you to do is stop hiding and say, you know what, I'm done with the story, I'm going to reinvent myself. So Purim is the ultimate day of new vitality, new renewal, new attitude, and Amalek represents cooling you off across the board. And that's what our tikkun is today, is to have strength, to go back into those old days, change our stories, and have strength. All right? That's this class.